Let's see Tulsi Gabbard kick some ass. This should be good. One of my favorite things to do is to see Tulsi Gabbard deal with issues of foreign policy. She is my sword in those moments. When she really gets on her particular topic, talking to some neocon about some place that we should invade, some place we should topple, some place we should attack, some place we should do some kind of economic warfare against something, somebody to punch. And she'd get there and say, well, no, that's not necessarily a good idea. That's not necessarily what the American public wants. And more importantly, I was a soldier. And yes, my responsibility is not to be your bitch. It is to serve this country and to protect this country. And those things that you're talking about in no way does what I served or joined up to do. Let's see Tulsi Gabbard kick some ass. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Soapbox After Dark. If you're looking at my window, it's dark. Guys, if you dig this content, you find yourself coming back often, like, share, subscribe. Of course, you can always support the PayPal, Patreon, all the good stuff. Tulsi Gabbard, Fox News, she's not afraid. Neil Cavuto, talking about her campaign video. Now, if you haven't seen this video, Tulsi Gabbard essentially tells Donald Trump, we are not your bitch and we are not your prostitute. Something to that effect. She also called him Saudi Arabia's bitch. So she has been pretty righteously indignant and pretty ferocious on this very particular point, which, I gotta be honest, I don't blame her. I'm not in the military, but I have a cousin that's in the military. And the notion that the United States will give support and cover to terrorists is despicable. And if you're a part of that military that served up with this notion that, yes, sometimes they pay your bills, but other times that, there's honor about defending the nation, whether that's true or not, and not necessarily true or not, more so wars of aggression to me are something somewhat different as opposed to defending your nation. But I think people get in, not this notion, this wars of aggression, but most notions of, I'm defending my nation. And once you're in, there's a certain psychology about the people once you're in. I guess my point is this. They don't join up to go to war with Iran over something that happened to a totalitarian regime that we have been buying, that have been buying hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons from us, and most likely you would think will be able to defend themselves. None of our business. I don't think they want to die for your war. Let's hear Tulsi get in it with Cavuto. Why can't I hear you, Tulsi?
Is the degree to which you hammered that charge at the president, which you said you are not our pimp. What did you mean by that?
Well, let's just make sure that we're on the same page here and recognize the context of what I was responding to that the president tweeted out. And I just want to read you what he said in that tweet, saying that, quote, we're waiting to hear from the kingdom as to who they believe was the cause of this attack and under what terms we would proceed. Look, Neil, I'm a soldier, and I took an oath as a soldier as well as a member of Congress to support and defend our Constitution of the United States, to serve the American people, and it's a huge disgrace to hear our commander-in-chief basically put us in a position, put us, the American people, our men and women in uniform, our military assets, in a position where we are servants of the Saudi kingdom, standing by and awaiting their orders on how we should proceed. This is an outrageous
was he saying that, Congresswoman, as much as trying? I understand what you're saying, but was he saying that as much as, look, they're looking into this. They're not marching orders here. They're saying they're trying to ascertain who was behind that attack, and that is what I think he was waiting on.
First question: why on earth? Why? Let me ask this. Is Saudi Arabia an honest actor? Is this totalitarian regime that cuts off heads and put them on spikes and crucifies people, are they honest actors in this process? No, they're not. Should you immediately just give over this notion of who did it over to people who are not honest actors? No, you should not. This notion that you're going to say, I'm waiting to hear what the Saudis say, screw that. They're not honest actors in this process. They have a clear bias in this particular case, meaning they hate Iran, and anything that hurts Iran helps Saudis, in which case they are going to tell you whatever they need to tell you against Iran. They're most likely going to lie. That's my point. They're not honest actors. Cavuto's argument here defending Trump doesn't hold up. I can't believe you just said that. Well, I guess he wanted to wait for the Saudis. Doesn't matter what the Saudis said. The Saudis, even if the Saudis said it was Iran. In fact, as the president of the United States, you may even assume the worst of what the Saudis are going to say when you're taking into your calculation, meaning it doesn't matter what the Saudis say. You assume that it was Iran, or at the very least, you assume that the Saudis are going to say it was Iran. I hope you get my point. The president should not be waiting to hear anything from Saudi Arabia. That's kind of my point. Let's hear Tulsi.
Well, if Trump didn't mean what he said when he tweeted that out, that, we've got to see under what terms we would proceed, then he needs to clarify what he said and actually say what he meant. He's the president of the United States. He's the commander-in-chief of the strongest military in the world. And I think he really needs to be clear. So far, and this was said a couple of days ago, right, he has not issued any kind of clarification. And so all we can presume is that he said what he meant in that tweet.
All right. He has not responded to your allegations or even tweeted a response. But what you did say is, I've never engaged in hateful rhetoric against you or your family, never will. But your offering our military assets to the dictator of Saudi Arabia to use as he sees fit is a betrayal of my brother and sisters in uniform who are ready to give our lives for our country, not the Islamist dictator of Saudi Arabia. The question I have for you then, Congresswoman, if you become president of the United States, and Saudi Arabia were attacked like it was here, and apparently by Iran, would you not intervene?
I would do what's in the best interest of our country.
Why would you intervene? Why would you intervene? Why is it our business? How is it our business? I get the whole oil for protection stuff. Isn't it time that that shit ends? The United States is literally an oil producer at this point, meaning we export more oil than we import. We can find other ways to do this. No, you should not use American assets to defend Saudi Arabia.
And as a soldier, I see these things very clearly, seeing what is our goal, what is our objective. And as it relates to Iran, we have two primary objectives. Number one is to make sure that Iran is no longer moving forward towards increasing and building their nuclear weapons capability, as they currently are since the Iran nuclear deal was torn up. And number two, to prevent this all-out shooting war with Iran that it appears we are headed towards. This is important for two reasons. Number one is obviously we've got to make sure we're keeping the American people safe, keep that at the forefront. And we can accomplish these objectives by understanding and realizing that the current strategy has failed. It's not helping us achieve that objective, and therefore we need to re-enter the Iran nuclear agreement and get rid of these crippling economic sanctions that are continuing to escalate this war against Iran.
Well, Iran has been doing this kind of stuff with or without sanctions, right? With or without a deal, right? So it doesn't seem to matter the occasion or the deal,
true.
right? They're provocative behavior in the Strait of Hormuz and elsewhere, right?
While the Iran nuclear deal was in place, Iran was found to be in compliance, both by our own intelligence agencies, the IAEA, other countries' intelligence agencies. They were complying with that deal, and it was making it so that they were not moving forward towards building a nuclear weapon. Now that that deal has been thrown in the trash, Iran is continuing to move forward.
Well, the nuclear deal notwithstanding, they have always been
escalate.
Provocative, right? So I guess what I would ask you, would you as president then ignore that provocation, deal or no deal? Would you work on behalf with the Saudis? Do you like the Saudis more or less than Iran? What?
It's not.
Do you like the Saudis more or less Iran? Did you hear him? Iran has always been provocative. Always. Ever since always, forever. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. That's amazing. I'm always amazed at how they just say this stuff. We overthrew their government. Like, understand what that means. We literally topple their government. Imagine another country getting rid of the existing government that we have and installing a brutal dictator in this country. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer taken to jails, arrested, all that. We did that. And he just says Iran has always been provocative. They've toppled your government. Yeah, they got their country back to some degree. Yes, it ended up being a theocracy. It's not great, but again, it's not under the brutal dictatorship sponsored by the United States. Always been provocative. That's astonishing. I'm astonished at that answer. But okay. Do you like the Iranians more than the Saudis? And keep in mind on this, we have been heaping all sorts of provocations. Again, I keep making this argument. Sanctions are an act of war. And Tulsi, again, is right. When Iran was in a nuclear deal, it wasn't trying to get nuclear weapons. Let's keep going. That answer annoyed me, to say the least.
Not about who you like or who you don't like. It's just about, once again, focusing on our objective of keeping the American people safe. What has just happened and transpired over the last few days here didn't just pop up out of nowhere. So we can't look at this in isolation away from what has been happening over the last several months that really was kicked off by President Trump walking away from and throwing that nuclear deal in the trash, increasing, crippling economic sanctions that are really hurting the people of Iran, most of all, designating their military as a terrorist organization, deploying more of our troops to the region. So there's a number of things that have pushed us all, the world, to this point where we are today.
So let me ask you, do you recognize Mohammed bin Salman as the leader of Saudi Arabia? Now, I know he was behind a lot of signals point that he was behind the killing of that Washington Post journalist a little over a year ago, but he is still in charge. And others have said you can't pick and choose your leaders of countries you might not like. It is what it is. Would you talk to him? Would you deal with him? Would you, on an attack like this, do something in concert with him?
I think it's important under these and other circumstances to be ready and to have the willingness to talk to leaders of other countries. And yes, I would meet with the leader of Saudi Arabia, as I would meet with the leader of Iran to de-escalate these tensions. And once again, keeping at the forefront what is in the best interest of the United States and how can we best accomplish that objective, which is keeping the American people safe, doing what's in the best interest of our national security. And by pursuing these diplomatic measures, we have the opportunity to then prevent that worst case scenario, which is an all-out shooting conflict war that would cause a devastating cost to the American people, to our troops, countless lives, trillions more dollars, what to speak of the impact and the devastation that would be caused around the region and the world.
All right, so the interpretation I have is that you want to bring back that Iran deal, get and move back to that, but it does give a signal here that you're no fan of the Saudi leadership, and many are not, I get that, but more of a fan of the leadership in Iran.
No, I'm a fan of the United States of America. I'm a fan.
God, this one is on television. Why is this on television? Why is this on television? This is an aggravating and nail-crunching interview to watch. Like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Iran has always been this way. They've always been provocative. That's coming from a context, right? I mean, it's like those goddamn Native Americans. They've always been provocative. I mean, they kept, trying to keep their land and trying to keep themselves from being murdered by us. How dare they try to defend themselves? That's an astonishing statement to make. Not to mention the provocations we've been making in the region, the assistance to the Saudis, the Israelis, they've been bombing and whatnot. That's amazing. All right, so right there is problematic. Then he goes further and it says, so you're more of a fan of the Saudis. I mean, I'm more of a fan of the Iranians than the Saudis. It's not about being a fan of anybody. It's more so about looking at this saying, no, I'm not fighting the Saudis' war. I'm not sending Americans to fight the Saudis' war. Yes, I will talk to the Saudis. I will talk to the Iranians. I will talk to pretty much any world leader. It's my job as commander-in-chief. And he's like, okay, so you're no fan of the Saudis. No, I'm not. Essentially, she's saying, no, I'm not. I'm not a fan of the Saudis. And no, I am not for fighting a war that the Saudis essentially started and continuously provokes in rhetoric and everything else. Shout out to Tulsi. Like I said, man, I love her doing these interviews. Let's keep going.
And of the American people. And as president and commander-in-chief, I would put their interests above all else.
Is it in our interest for Saudi Arabia? Is it in our interest for Saudi Arabia to be protected or its kingdom to be protected? Or do you draw a distinction?
Well, let me tell you what is not in our interests is this alliance that has been longstanding between the United States and Saudi Arabia, in spite of the fact that they are directly and indirectly supporting al-Qaeda, a terrorist group that attacked us on 9/11. We just observed the 18th anniversary of that terrible attack on our country in 2001. They are continuing to spend billions of dollars every year propagating this extremist Wahhabi ideology that's fueling the growth of terrorist groups like al-Qaeda and ISIS and others around the world. They are directly supporting those who pose a threat to our country and to the United States, that threat that we need to defeat.
Is that threat greater than Iran?
Yes, it is.
So
Currently,
Saudi
Iran
Arabia
does not.
This is aggravating. Who has Iran invaded? Tell me. Who has Iran invaded? Nobody. Iran hasn't invaded nobody. He doesn't disagree with her argument in the sense that, look, they're spreading this shit out everywhere. All right, he didn't attack that particular point, so it doesn't seem like you entirely disagree with that. If you agree with that, the people who were on those planes that hit us at 9/11 were Saudis. Does he not know that? Does Cavuto, whatever his name is, does he not know that? Meaning, Iran has never hit us. Iran has never done anything provocative in the sense of hitting us in this particular country. Al-Qaeda, Saudis have. And if you get into the, I would love for those documents to be released, talking about Saudi involvement in regards to 9/11. If you're asking what's a little bit more of a threat to me, it's not Iran. It's not Iran. I wish Tulsi would return to him and say, what has Iran done in the sense of provocation that makes you believe that they're going to hit us here as opposed to the terrorists that has already hit us? And fact of the matter is, if you engaged with them fairly, they wouldn't be trying to get a nuclear bomb. And that's assuming they're even trying to get a nuclear bomb. Let's keep going. This interview is aggravating. He's a person walking around thinking this way. There can never be peace with people like this. There's no such thing as peace in these terms. Understand what I mean? If you are let's say 10 people are in a house, and one guy thinks that it's okay to be extremely provocative in regards to either taking somebody's stuff, or let's say doing things that is adversely affecting the way that some of the people who are living there engages. And then the moment that person does anything in response, they flip out and say, oh my God, they're attacking me. They're attacking me. It's like the picture of the Israeli soldiers with all the weapons and the guns and the nuclear weapons, and you hit them with a rock and they flip out saying, oh my God, I can't believe you hit me with that rock. It's a fucking person walking around. And God, he may even have kids.
It's more
Currently,
of a problem for us than
Iran does not pose a direct threat to the United States. We have the opportunity to make sure that we prevent Iran from continuing to move forward towards developing a nuclear weapon. That's where we need to be focused. If I were president right now, that's exactly what I'd be doing, getting back into that nuclear deal, getting rid of these crippling economic sanctions, and being able to make sure we can move forward in the interest of our national security.
So President Tulsi Gabbard would see Saudi Arabia as a bigger threat to our country than Iran.
What I would like to see is Saudi Arabia ending their support for al-Qaeda, terrorist groups like al-Qaeda, who pose a threat to the American people.
It's not what I asked.
I know, you're turning my words around. You're turning my words around.
I want to just be very clear. But you have...
I wish he was more aggressive. I would have loved for her to say, well, no, you're turning my words around, and do you disagree with anything that I just said? I'm talking about objective fucking reality. Do you disagree with what I just said? It's one thing if you challenge something I said. If you say, no, that's not true. Saudi Arabia is not supporting Al-Qaeda. Fair enough. Attack that part of the argument. But you're not. She's making an argument, and she's making her argument from the beginning of her talk to now. It's one argument. And we should not be getting engaged in these militaristic conflicts in the Middle East, and we should not be supporting somebody who is supporting terrorism. And yes, Iran is not a threat to us at this moment, and we should engage with them in order to ensure they don't pose a threat. That's our argument. That's the base. This entire thing was just that. Cavuto ignores all of that. Because if you ignore that, you're entirely missing what she's saying. She's like, look, these guys are supporting terrorism. Terrorists like that hit us on 9/11. Between Iran and Saudi Arabia, they're the ones that are supporting people that have shown a propensity to be able to hit us. The others, not so much. This is the more important case. They're supporting terrorists, like Al-Qaeda, like the people who hit us on 9/11. And he's like, so you're trying to say, you'd be more friendly to Iran. It's like, did you hear what she fucking said? What do you disagree with? Tell me what you disagree with. Because if you tell me what you disagree with, and maybe the problem is, maybe you don't disagree with any of that, which is even worse. Because that means you're okay with Saudi Arabia supporting terrorists like the terrorists that hit us on 9/11. And you believe that is more important than engaging with Iran in order to prevent an all-out war, or at the very least to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. I'm sorry, that's an astonishing perspective. But there is no other way to read what is taking place here. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. He's ignoring everything she's saying in order to just ask her, hey, so you're more friendly with Iran. That's the entire fucking interview. That's all he wanted to know the entire interview. But again, in order to make that work, it would mean that he doesn't care that Saudi Arabia is supporting terrorists, and that those terrorists hit us on 9/11, and that those people were Saudis. None of that matters to him. He wants the soundbite of Iran and Saudi Arabia. God, I wish you would have turned that around and just asked him, so you're okay with X? Because that's literally what that would mean if you don't challenge anything that I just said. Be more aggressive. Be more aggressive. Be more aggressive in these interviews. I get the Zen Buddhist shit, man. But this is politics. This is not Zen and Buddhist shit. People have wavelengths. And not everybody is Zen and Buddhist. And when people are not Zen and Buddhist, that doesn't translate. It comes across as a little bit, dare I say, I'm putting this in quotes because it's not coming from me, but boring. And it's not that it's a bad interview. It's a great interview. She does extremely well. In fact, even being aware of what he wants out of this interview. Like, get what I mean? Like, as she's doing this interview, she's consciously aware that I am on Fox News, and Fox News is trying to get a soundbite, and this is the thing that he wants me to say. I'm not going to say that because that's not what I mean, so I am going to tell him exactly what I mean. And he continues to try to get the soundbite. And the problem is, in order to get the soundbite, he has to almost believe such atrocious things. I wish she would have turned that around and stopped this fucking badgering and asked him, so you're okay with us supporting a totalitarian regime that still chops off heads and put them on pikes and still engages in crucifixion, and more importantly, is supporting terrorists like the people who hit us on 9/11. Ask him that. He's badgering you, and you just told him something fucking profound, especially to a Fox News audience. Ask him. Don't let him continuously badger you as if he's pushing you with an interview. Man out. Beast out. Kind of push that point of, is this really what you mean? Is this really what Fox News is for? Is this what you're supporting? I can't abide that as a soldier. Yes, hit back. There's no harm in hitting back at all. Maybe not get angry, but definitely hit back. There's nothing wrong with hitting back. That's your fish.
A higher opinion of Iran than you do Saudi Arabia as things stand
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm focused on how we can best keep the American people safe, on how we can make sure that we have our national security intact.
And the Saudis
are a bigger threat.
The Saudis are a bigger threat to that safety than Iran. I just want to be clear.
The Saudis are directly supporting the very terrorist group that attacked us on 9/11.
Stop being badgered! Stop being badgered! Stop being badgered! There's a whole nother minute left in this video. I haven't watched this video. which is probably why my reactions are just kind of what they are. I would wager to you that she sits here for another minute. He's been badgering you for 3 minutes. This is a 9-minute clip. Let's say 8 minutes of it is an interview. And 6 minutes of it, you've just repeated yourself because he's badgered you. There's nothing wrong with taking control of an interview. Now, that doesn't always work. Ultimately, he is the host. But ultimately, if you ask him something that provocative, he will respond to you. He has no choice but to respond to you. He may even say, that's not the question I asked, in which case you can reiterate, I understand that's not the question I asked, but I'm asking you more so because you seem to not care that this government is supporting terrorists that hit us on 9/11. I'm saying take control of that. And I know you do these interviews all the time, which is why I'm even saying it. Because you do these interviews all the time. And you shouldn't sit here. He's not being brutal to you. He's just badgering you for like 3 minutes. I would wager to you that she sits here for another minute and he just gets badgered. Let's see. Let's see if I'm right.
9/11, and that continue to pose a threat to the American people today.
So if the president were to take action against Iran, with or without Saudi intelligence or help, that would be a bad move in your eyes?
That would be a very bad move. It would not serve the interests of the United States. It would cost thousands more of my brothers and sisters in uniform their lives. It would cost us as taxpayers trillions of dollars more. It would make the Iraq war that I served in look like a picnic compared to the cost and the consequence and the devastation that would come about as a result of that war. What to speak of the fact that it would be unconstitutional, given the president would do that without that authority coming from Congress.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Neil.
God, I'm astonished by that. Maybe I shouldn't be astonished by that. For fuck's sake, that is brutal to watch. Is it just me? Like, was that difficult to watch? Is it just me? Is it just me? This was brutal to watch, man. Like, you know what's funny? I've had these arguments. I've had these arguments with people who didn't want to have the argument with me. I don't understand them. Maybe that's it. Like, I guess I look at the world as one man, one vote, right? And just in my own family, I could see how the world breaks. You know, my mom, nicest person on the planet, bend over backwards for you. My aunt is not that way at all. My aunt is not that way at all. Not necessarily a horrible person, but she is an Aries through and through. And she will cry when prick and bitch most of the time, missing the point that, you know, she's crying when pricked. That type of stuff. So you have those people that break in real life. And yeah, that shows in politics. In similar terms. I've gotten into arguments with people. Like, I guess my point is this: you have some people who want more. It's not enough to have enough for their own. They want more. So it's not one person, one vote per se. It's one person, multiple votes. We want to have more. This notion of fair play doesn't factor into it. It's power politics. The goal is to topple that particular government. Tulsi's point is that is none of our business. That government is supporting terrorism. Those terrorists hit us on 9/11. This is none of our business. Let them deal with their own battles. We need to deal with Iran to ensure that they don't necessarily try to give up. That's her argument. That's her framing of this. And his argument seems to be, yeah, but the president is trying to punch Iran in the mouth. You don't support that, huh? You're more in favor of supporting Iran than Saudi Arabia. And she's like, it's nothing. It's a neither choice, dude. It's not about who I support or who I don't support. What is in the best interest of the United States from the standpoint of the deals that we need to make? For fuck's sake, the United States was working with Joseph Stalin. They were working with Stalin. Do you know that it was a mass grave while the war was taking place of Stalin's was uncovered? And what do you think the United States did? They covered that shit up. Right? Uncle Joe, Uncle Joe, Uncle Joe. We are right now working with a totalitarian regime that puts heads on spikes. And Cavuto's argument seems to be, yeah, but Iran is dangerous. Cavuto, do you agree or disagree that they're supporting terrorists, dude? Which one do you do? Which one is it? That's just a fascinating video. It's just a fascinating video. What's the general feeling of the comment section under that video? Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. This gets, wow, 3,090 thumbs up. Whoa, man, this is brutal. All right, I need to figure out why, though. Why are people pissed off? 3,090 thumbs up. 2,575 thumbs down. Thumbs down to Neil. Tulsi, thumbs up for calling out the Saudis. Okay, great. Wow, Neil really doesn't want Tulsi to call out. Oh, here's another one. I fall in conservative sphere. She is correct on the fact that the Saudi does support international terrorism. That's a known fact. Oh, yes, comment section. That made a lot of sense. I really like that she's so against war. Yes. You like, this argument is never made. This argument is never made. Like, this is the beauty of this, right? Like, this is kind of like where AOC is like, we need to raise taxes on the rich to 70% above a particular point. I think she, 90, like over $50 million or something. And people on Fox was like, oh God, the people will never go for that. That's horrendous. I can't believe she said that. Nobody would ever go for that. Holy shit, look at this poll that says 70% of the public is for it. The argument was never made. The Democratic Party gave away the argument. They took the cash and gave away the argument. And when they gave away that argument, people just assume this argument can't be made. No, the argument can be made. Look at this. Look at the video. Look at the bottom. She pulls a conservative back without letting the host put words in her mouth. She's smart. Larry Penn, exactly. Unless we attack, stay the hell out of it. Look at this. Why should Trump attack Iran if Saudi Arabia doesn't ask for help? Republicans need to force Trump to fire Pompeo and Mitch. Going to war with Iran is a bad idea. I'm just randomly going through. I'm with Tulsi. Let's get the anti-war wave rolling as a 33-year veteran. Here's another. She's absolutely right. That is how you talk with him. Otherwise, he won't pay attention to you. And it's got 67 upvotes. Wow. Fucking A. Tulsi. Fucking A. Tulsi. And look, this is Fox News, by the way, meaning it's their channel. The people who are here, most likely, ideally, will be conservatives. I would imagine maybe some Tulsi supporters, and I'm here, so that's not necessarily true. Ignore that point. But I would imagine there would be a lot of right-wingers here. 3.5 million subscribers. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. Good job, Tulsi. Good job, Tulsi. Oh, and by the way, the last polling that I've seen for Tulsi Gabbard, after the debate, post-debate, Tulsi has gone up in the polls. She's gone up in the polls, despite not being in the debate. That's the value of Tulsi. Yeah, she has zero chance of winning, but she brings the issues up. Yes. Lately, though, her anger, frustration, and fatigue are bleeding through in her presentations. I don't blame her, man. I mean, they're people. They're people. And if I'm being a little bit honest, Garden, a little bit anger bleeding through wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Let the monster out. That's where I'm at. Crossover support is huge. Buster Peak, yeah. She does get crossover support. And I suspect it's because of that. Like, the argument isn't made. The moment that the argument is made, people are like, wow, she makes sense. They're like, because again, Cavuto, she's telling him outright, and he's not challenging anything she says. Cavuto, Saudi Arabia is supporting terrorists. Hillary Clinton even said it in her emails. Saudi Arabia is supporting terrorists. We should not be supporting them. And yes, Iran is not trying to attack us. They have not invaded anybody. We should be working with them to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. And he's like, so you want to support Iran more than Saudi Arabia? Fuck. Now, somebody's looking at that as like, well, fuck, if they're supporting terrorists, why are we working with them? That's the rational human being. How's that rational human being? Rational human being. They're supporting terrorists. Oh yeah, man. I don't know if we should be supporting them. I mean, fuck, man. They hit us on 9/11. I'm a right winger and all, but I mean, does my republicanism mean I need to support people who hit us on 9/11? I don't think that's what my republicanism means. I don't think that. I mean, fuck. I mean, I don't think Iraq was a win. I think that shit was a disaster. Why are we even doing this? I mean, Saudi Arabia buys $100 million of weapons from us. They can't defend themselves. I mean, is that not the conservative position that we don't want to spend a shitload of money defending these fucks? I mean, come on. This arrangement, oil for cash, needs to come to an end. And we need to deal with our own affairs in this particular country without relying on that regime to supply oil. And this fuckery in the Middle East where they are about to drag us into a war. Just saying. Just saying. Like, share, subscribe.